guys, today we're gonna can some homemade chili. I'm gonna give you the way that I do it because chili is sort of notorious for not sealing. And there's a reason for that. So I'm just gonna give you the run through for those who already know how to can to tell you why people's chili is not sealing very easily. And then after this, then you can go and watch and I will show you step by step exactly how I do it. You're gonna wanna do this though because you can can a homemade chili that is so much better than anything you can buy at the store because let's face it, we all buy it, but store-bought chili is like 2 steps below dog food. This is delicious. Clean ingredients, you know exactly what's in it, and it's less expensive. This is a quart size. If you do the math for the equivalent of ounces for a quart buying in the can from the store, for a, not even the higher end brands, you're looking at about $5 for about a quart size amount. So we did 14 quarts. I'm about to show you how I do it for $22. So to buy that equivalent amount in canned chili from the store would have cost $70. So we got $70 worth of chili for $22 that will last on the shelf for years and years. It's healthier, it tastes better, you know what's in it. Why not do it? So if you want more of these home canning and preserving videos where I give you a breakdown of the cost and the savings of doing it yourself, then put it in the comments that you want more of these and we will definitely keep doing them. But the big thing with chili is that a lot of times people don't take into account the expansion of the beans. So if you don't do it the right way, the beans can expand too much, which will cause siphoning or even push against the lid, preventing you to a good seal. I never have any problem with my chili sealing for 2 main reasons. One, I soak them overnight before, which has other benefits, which I'll explain in the video ahead as we do it. But it also helps to let them take in a lot of water into the beans so you get a better gauge of the size that you actually have in your jar. And then I partially cook the chili for about 30 minutes. I don't fully cook it because it's gonna cook in the jar when you can it and you don't want it to turn to mush, but I do cook it enough to where most of the swelling is already done. And then you want to give yourself a good 1.5 inches of headspace for any more swelling that may happen. If you do that, you will get a delicious, amazing, healthy chili that will last forever, well, for years on the shelf, and you won't lose your seals. It will work every time. I never have a problem with it. So come on, let me show you exactly how I can my homemade chili, and stay tuned to the end. We will give you the instructions on how to pressure can or heritage water bath can this for those that are canning in other countries that don't do the pressure canning. In all of my canning videos, I always give you the times and the instructions for both methods. So make sure you like, subscribe, and follow if you like these kinds of videos. Here we go.
The first thing we want to do is get our beans soaking overnight. You can use whatever beans you want if you want to go with some traditional pinto or some red beans. I like to use a combination of every kind of bean, pea, and legume. First, because it gives you a better flavor, but also because it gives you a far better and more diverse nutritional profile. So just whatever beans you have on hand, peas, lentils, all of that, you can throw it all in there. And you're going to want to rinse them and then put them in some warm water and let them sit at least overnight to soften up.
All right, after soaking overnight, I had to transfer it to a bigger pot because they swole up. Of course, you do not have to do this much, but I like to do a lot at one time to get the job over with. This is gonna make it so much more digestible and healthy and remove some of the protective acidic coating from the seed that prevents you from absorbing some of the nutrients. It's going to remove some of those lectins, just make it healthier and easier on your system. And it's going to make it cook a lot quicker too. All right, I'm using a big old tall pot, so I'm going to get you in a weird angle today, but we're going to start with our meat. I have about 5 pounds, but you can use whatever you have. You can use ground meat, you can use steak meat. I wouldn't use anything too tender because you're going to be cooking this for quite a while. Roast, chicken, anything like that. But I like it with ground meat, so that's what we're starting with. So we're just gonna brown our meat first. While the meat's browning, I always add some basic seasonings. I do not add my chili pepper or any of my chili seasonings. I wait until there's a gravy in it for that. But for the meat, salt, pepper, seasonal, garlic, black pepper, red pepper, things like that, I go ahead and add. While the meat is coming up to temperature and browning, go ahead and cut up your seasonings, whatever seasonings you like, and have that ready and waiting on the side. And this is totally your preference, how much you put or what you put, which of course depends too on how much you're making. All right, my meat is mostly browned, and so now I'm gonna add in my seasonings and let all that wilt for a little while. Just a few minutes until the onions kind of melt down a little bit. All right, while your onions are wilting, you can go ahead and put in some tomato paste. You can use homemade or store-bought, or you can use homemade spaghetti sauce. I know most people don't have access to that, so I'm going to try to use ingredients that, you know, everybody can usually find. Tomato paste is really cheap and easy to get. For this much, I'm going to use 4 cans. Honestly, the average person would, even for canning, would probably be cooking about half of what I'm cooking right now. But for what I'm doing, I'm going to do 4 cans. And you can actually put this in at any point, but the way I was always taught to do it was to add it in while my meat's kind of browning, and then stir that paste around a little bit and kind of brown it a little bit too, and it'll give it a better roasted flavor, but it'll also help to kind of thicken the gravy a little bit better. Same thing applies for spaghetti or anything else you're using tomato paste in. All right, and once you get that all kind of mixed in with the meat, then you want to go ahead and add some water. Or broth. I'm adding 2 quart jars to start with. That's just to stop the browning of the meat and kind of scratch up that stuff off the bottom a little bit. After I add my beans, I'll see where I stand and see how much water and broth I actually need to put into it. So that's just some chicken broth that I have in the fridge that needs to be used up. If you want to know how to make chicken broth, I have a video on how to do that. Again, to give you a little idea, real chicken broth, that's not just chemicals and salt water, will be like Jell-O. Once it's been chilled or cooled down, it will not be like a clear, watery. Now, once it warms back up, it will turn back into a regular watery broth. So you do not have to put broth in your chili. It will have a delicious taste all on its own. But if you have it and you want to use it, you definitely can. So now that we've added our water and or broth, we're going to go ahead and put our beans in. Because I have so many, I'm going to do it like this. So we're going to cook this not all the way cooked, but we're going to cook it partially, maybe like halfway on the stove before we transfer to our jars. This is going to make so much chili. That's why I went ahead and added the broth to help boost the flavor, because I have so many beans. But I want to get these cooked and canned for the winter season for very quick, easy meals that we can eat as a chili with corn chips, with rice, over baked potatoes, any way that you like. You can use it as a base to make like a tortilla soup or taco soup or anything like that. You can mix it in with some Spanish rice. Now, having mixed in so many different beans and legumes and lentils and peas and all of that, they're not going to all cook at the same rate. So a lot of your smaller ones are going to disappear into the sauce, but that's going to make your sauce nice and thick and rich and very nutritious and give it so much more abundant flavor. Some people even like to add corn, which you could, and that is very good. I've done that before too, but we're not going to do that with this batch. So I'm going to add a little more water than this because these beans are going to suck some of this up as it cooks. All right, it's been cooking for maybe like 30 minutes and we're pretty much almost there. I'm gonna go ahead and add my seasonings as far as like my chili powder and so forth now. So again, this is to taste, whatever seasonings you like. I'm gonna put some little bit of cumin, some chili powder, a little bit of Fiesta flavor seasoning. I'm gonna put a lot of this chili powder because I have a big pot. So yeah, just taste it and know that it's not fully cooked. So these flavors will intensify and it's gonna cook some more in the jar. That's why we don't want to let it cook all the way, because if you let it cook all the way, once you put it in the jar and pressure can it, your beans are going to turn to just mush. So you just want to soften them and swell them, because I don't like, they're going to swell a lot in the jar and you don't want to bust the jar. So I like to partially cook them before we put them in. So just get it to, a flavor that you're okay with. When you go to put it into your jars, stir it really good, because your beans are gonna, and you're gonna want to stir throughout the whole process, by the way, so your beans don't burn, but your beans are gonna want to settle to the bottom. So you want to constantly stir to bring everything back to a good mixture of beans and gravy. And we're gonna see how many jars this is gonna fill us. And I am going to tell you that already, even though this is not all the way cooked, it's already tasting ridiculous good. So this is just too easy not to do, to have so many jars of good hearty winter chili. And when it comes to canning beans, there's a lot of swelling involved. So you want to make sure, even though they're partially cooked, just to make sure, you want to leave a good 1.5 inches of headspace. Oh, I'm making a mess. Of headspace on these jars to give room, because these beans are going to still swell some as they cook. A little more. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that before you fill these jars with this hot liquid, you need to warm them up so that there's not a shock, especially if they've been stored in a cold room. So the easiest way to do that is, you're going to want to rinse them off anyway. So just fill you a sink full of really hot water and rinse off your lids and fill your jars up and just have them sitting there in that hot water while you're waiting for your chili to finish, so that whenever you're done, you just pour that hot water out, give them a rinse with some hot tap, and you're good to go. Your jars are already kind of warmed up a little bit so they don't get shocked by the temperature difference. And if you do that, I've never had one break ever doing that. So that has always been sufficient enough for me. And then when you go to can these, you can either pressure can them for 90 minutes, because there's meat in it, for the quarts, or 70 minutes if you're just doing little pints. Or if you're using the old heritage water bath canning method, then you're going to want to water bath them for 3 hours. If you don't know how to do the water bath, you can see a step-by-step instruction by watching this video. If you've never pressure canned, you can get a step-by-step instruction by watching this video. Once you've done that, they're going to be shelf stable for years and years and years. And they're going to be so much better than anything you could buy from a store. Now we're going to want to take our vinegar rag, our paper towel, and just start wiping all of the rims of the jars really good. You know, make sure that every little bit of that messy chili is off of the rims, because we don't want to lose any of our seals. And chili is very messy, so it's likely to get on the rim no matter how careful you are not to do it. Once you get all your jars wiped, you want to put your rims on, finger tight. A good way to remember is to, here I'll show you, is to let it go until it stops on its own, and then do maybe a fourth of a rotation more is a safe way to do it. Come right here, see if you can see what I mean. So like I say, spinning until it stops on its own, and then quarter rotation. So you don't want to crank it on. You want it to basically just go until your fingers feel it stop. It's a little tricky with the lids, getting a feel for what is a good close, because if you do it too tight, you can mess it up. If you do it too loose, you can mess it up. But for me, the best way to remember, get it, the way I have the most success with, is to put it on till it stops spinning on its own, and then just little quarter turn crank after that. You actually usually don't have as much of a problem with siphoning with things that are a little bit thicker like chili, unless you overfill. If you overfill, you won't get a good seal. And a lot of times with chili, people have problems getting a seal, and it's because they're not taking into account the beans, how much they're gonna swell. So again, make sure you put a good 1.5 inches of headspace anytime you're canning beans. So we ended up with 14 jars out of that pot. All right, so there you have it, homemade canned chili. Isn't that easy and so worth it? You can do so much at one time. You don't have to, but I like to get a bunch done at once. And it's very inexpensive. We are at the end of 2025, so it cost me $22. And we are putting up 14 quarts, which at this current stage, if I bought at the store, not even buying the best of the best, but just buying, you know, the mediocre chili, that would have cost me $70 for an equivalent amount. So it's definitely cost effective. And beyond that, it's just worth it because it's so much more healthy and so much more delicious. You know you want to do it. Go try it.